Before I look at the next verse, verse 656, I'd just like to say something about the verse numbering. As I've mentioned before, I'm having to reconstitute the text because in the translation, the translator, Professor Suzuki, just gives a reference sometimes to the main text, the main body of the text. So what I've done is I've had to go back to the main body of the text and replace the reference with the actual text. But this isn't always straightforward, and I think Professor Suzuki might have made a mistake or two. So verse 656, for example, is supposed to be the second line of chapter 3, verse 62. But verse 657 is also all of verse 62. So what I'm going to do here is just put all of verse 62. So it seems like there's another mistake being made here, but it counterbalances the other mistake. So after this one, the numbering should be correct. Anyway, let's not bother about that. I'm just mentioning it in case some confusion is caused, but it's actually in the instructions for reconstituting the text. But hopefully you don't have to worry about that, and I'll just get on with verse 656. Now, in the previous verse, a question was asked: how is the unseen born? By what does the impermanent world come into existence? And this is really about enlightenment practice. How is the unseen born? In other words, how do we come back to that which is not seen? That which is not seen is what is actually doing the seeing. It's really awareness, consciousness. So we want to come back to this. But what does the impermanent world come into existence? Well, we're not so bothered about this because it happens automatically. It happens when awareness goes out from itself, goes out into what is apparently going on and discriminates individual objects. So we're really concerned though with coming back to this awareness. And this is what the next verse is about, verse 656. Which is actually verse 62 from chapter 3. Beings are subdued by the reception and are brought into subjection by the moral precepts. They are removed from philosophical views by transcendental knowledge and are nourished by the emancipations. So beings are subdued by the reception. And this being subdued is the subduing of the attention. Most of our lives, the attention is being hijacked. The world is saying, look at me, come here, no, over here, no, over here. And when I say the world, I also mean the world of our thoughts, our ideas, our heads. Our heads are actually part of the world because the contents of our head, let's be honest, probably take up more of our attention than anything else. So the attention is like the tail of a dog constantly wagging us. And at some point in our lives, we get a bit fed up with this and we start looking for something else. And this is when we become spiritual seekers. And perhaps we might turn to Buddhism. We might actually go along to a Buddhist center, a meditation class, or start reading about it. And there's something quite nice about it. The focus is different, the emphasis is different. It's not about mass consumerism. It's not about survival needs. Something else. There's a scent of something else in the air. And this is the reception. This is the reception. There's a note here in the text. There are 4 ways of receiving others: charity, kindly spirit, benevolent deeds, and impartiality. And hopefully this is the sort of experience you have when you go along to a Buddhist centre. There's a kindly spirit in operation. You're being received. There's something here which you feel is worth pursuing. So this is the first step into bringing this wagging tail to heel. The next step is the moral precepts, sila, and this is a very basic Buddhist teaching. They aren't commandments as such, they're training principles. There are ways of beginning to observe your own behaviour, your own moods, and how they keep the attention trapped in habitual behaviour. For a more in-depth look at the precepts, there's a video in the series, video number 40 I think it is. Yes. And along with the precepts, we want to practice what these verses are concerned with, understanding our philosophical outlook on the world, understand the assumptions that we make, question that which it seems absurd to question. It seems absurd to question the existence of an external material world. This has to be questioned. We have to look at why we believe this. We can't just say it's obvious. When you say it's obvious that there's an external material world, all you're saying is you don't see the point in examining it. You don't see the point in examining our assumptions as to why this is the case, why we believe it's physical, material, external. Because when you examine it, when you start looking into it, there doesn't seem to be any good reason to believe that it's a physical, material, external world. So this is described here as transcendental knowledge, because at this point, when we start looking into it, we're beginning to transcend the world. This is insight, this is wisdom, prajna. When this happens, like I mentioned in the previous verse, we start getting an insight into our moods which are driven by desires and aversions. These are 2 of the poisons, and the third poison is not even knowing that this is going on. This is delusion. So we become emancipated from delusion, from aversion, from desire. These are the 3 emancipations. We start becoming free of our habit energy, of our addictions and fetishes. In a word, we're no longer dominated to the same extent by our moods. So this is how we once again realize the unseen, imageless. We come back to suchness.